What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, genuinely glad you found this place because we talk about the real stuff, the conversations about relationships, mindset, and self-development that most people are too uncomfortable to have openly. And if you have been here before, you already know we do not sugarcoat anything and we do not waste your time. So let us get straight into something that a lot of men have either been through or are going through right now. Here's the statement that most men need to hear, but nobody is really saying clearly enough. A woman coming back after she left you is not automatically a second chance worth taking. And before anyone gets defensive about that, hear me out. Because the way a man handles this specific situation says everything about where he is mentally, emotionally, and in terms of his own self-worth. Most men, when a woman they cared about comes back, immediately open the door wide without asking a single important question. The excitement of having her back overrides every red flag, every unresolved issue, and every lesson that the breakup was supposed to teach. And that pattern, as understandable as it is, almost always leads to the exact same pain the second time around. What we are covering today is how to handle this situation the right way, with clarity, with self-respect, and with the kind of stoic mindset that puts you in control of your own narrative, rather than being pulled around by someone else's decisions. Whether she came back because she genuinely grew and wants something real, or whether she came back for reasons that have nothing to do with your best interests, you need to know how to tell the difference and what to do either way. This video is going to give you exactly that. 1. Why she came back is more important than the fact that she did. Let's start with the most important question that most men never stop to ask when a woman comes back after leaving. Why is she actually here? Not the reason she gives on the surface, not the emotional speech about missing the connection or realizing she made a mistake, but the real, honest reason behind her return. Because here is the truth that Stoicism teaches us very clearly: not all returns are created equal. Some women come back because they have genuinely done the work, reflected deeply, and grown into someone who is ready to show up differently in the relationship. The Stoic approach to this moment is to slow everything down and observe before reacting. When she comes back, the natural human response, especially if feelings are still there, is to feel a rush of emotion that wants to immediately restore what was lost. That feeling is completely understandable and there is nothing wrong with feeling it. But acting on it without first getting clear on the why is where men make the mistake that costs them everything. Stoicism teaches that the wise man does not react to the first wave of emotion. He lets it pass, he observes the situation with clear eyes, and then he makes a decision based on what he can actually see rather than what he hopes might be true. Apply that principle here, and it will save a great deal of pain. The practical way to figure out why she is really back is to pay more attention to her actions and patterns than to her words. Words in emotional moments are not always reliable indicators of genuine intention. What is reliable is consistency over time. Does she take real accountability for what happened without minimizing or deflecting? Is she showing through her behavior that something has genuinely changed, or is she simply recreating the same dynamic that existed before? Is she coming back on her terms only, expecting things to return to exactly how they were, or is she genuinely open to building something different and better? Those questions, answered honestly through observation rather than wishful thinking, will tell a man far more about whether this return is worth entertaining than anything she could ever say in the first conversation. Know why she is back before deciding whether to let her in. 2. Do not let emotion make a decision that needs logic. This section is one that requires complete honesty because it addresses one of the most human and most vulnerable moments a man can find himself in. When a woman you genuinely cared about comes back, the emotional pull is real, it is powerful, and it is not something to be ashamed of. Feelings do not disappear simply because a relationship ended, and the reappearance of someone who meant something to you naturally stirs everything back up. But here is where Stoicism becomes absolutely essential. The moment a major life decision is handed over to emotion alone, without logic, without clarity, and without honest self-assessment, is the moment a man loses control of his own story. The Stoics had a principle that is directly applicable here: separate what you can control from what you cannot, and focus your energy exclusively on the former. You cannot control the fact that she left. You cannot control the feelings that her return stirs up inside you. But you can absolutely control how you respond to those feelings and what decisions you make in light of them. The emotional response says, open the door immediately, forgive everything, and go back to how things were because the pain of her absence has been real and her return feels like relief. The logical response says, slow down, assess the situation clearly, ask the hard questions, and make a decision that serves long-term well-being rather than short-term emotional comfort. Those two responses are pulling in completely different directions, and a man has to consciously choose which one is going to drive his actions. Here is the practical framework that helps create that separation between emotion and logic in this specific situation. Before making any decision about whether to give things another chance, give yourself a defined period of time, not weeks of complete silence, but enough space to let the initial emotional wave settle and allow clearer thinking to take over. During that time, write down honestly what the relationship was really like. Not just the good moments, but the patterns, the issues, the reasons it ended, and what would actually need to be different for it to work this time. Then look at what she is actually showing you through her behavior right now and compare it to what that list requires. If what she is showing matches what is genuinely needed, that is worth a real conversation. If it does not, the emotion telling you to go back is not love, it is familiarity. And familiarity and love are two very different things that feel remarkably similar in vulnerable moments. 3. The Stoic man does not rush back into anything. One of the most powerful principles Stoicism teaches is the value of patience, not passive, resigned waiting, but deliberate, intentional stillness in moments that demand a clear head. And there are very few moments in a man's life that demand a clearer head than the moment a woman who left him comes back asking for another chance. The Stoic man understands that the urgency he feels in that moment is not a signal to act immediately. It is a signal to pause, because decisions made in urgency, especially emotional urgency, almost never reflect what a man truly needs. They reflect what he feels right now, and right now is not always the most reliable guide to what is actually best. Rushing back into a relationship because the emotions are loud and the familiarity is comforting is one of the most common mistakes men make in this situation. And the reason it keeps happening is that most men have never been taught to sit with discomfort long enough to let clarity emerge from it. When she comes back and the feelings rush in, the discomfort of uncertainty pushes men toward a quick resolution. Just go back, just say yes, just restore the comfort and make the pain stop. But that quick resolution comes at a cost. It skips the important work of genuine reflection, honest assessment, and real conversation about what would need to change. And without that work, nothing actually changes. The relationship picks up where it left off, the same patterns resurface, and the same ending repeats itself in a matter of time. The Stoic approach is to take the time that the situation deserves before committing to any direction. This means being honest with her about needing space to think clearly, rather than giving an immediate answer driven by emotion. It means using that space genuinely, not to play games or manufacture power, but to do the real internal work of understanding what you want, what you need, and whether what she is offering aligns with both of those things honestly. A woman who genuinely wants to rebuild something real with a man will respect that process. She will understand that trust takes time to rebuild and that a man who takes his decisions seriously is a man worth waiting for. And a woman who cannot respect that process, who wants an immediate yes and is unwilling to give a man the space to think clearly, is showing through that very impatience exactly why the relationship did not work the first time. 4. What changed? In her and in you matters everything. Here is the question that cuts through everything and gets straight to the heart of whether a second chance is worth considering. What has actually changed? Not what has been said, not what has been promised, but what has genuinely, verifiably changed in both her and in you since the relationship ended. Because a relationship that returns to exactly where it left off, with the same two people carrying the same unresolved patterns, is not a new beginning. Change in her needs to show up through consistent behavior over time, not through emotional conversations in the first few days of reconnection. Has she taken real accountability for her role in what went wrong without deflecting or minimizing? Has she done anything during the time apart that suggests genuine personal growth, therapy, honest self-reflection, real changes in the patterns that caused problems? Those are the things worth looking for. Words are easy to produce in emotional moments. Behavior over time is where the truth lives. But here is the part that most men overlook entirely. What changed in you matters just as much. The time apart was not just about her. It was an opportunity for genuine self-development, for building a stronger sense of identity, for getting clearer on what is truly needed in a relationship and what will no longer be accepted. If a man spent the time apart genuinely growing, he is a different person re-entering the conversation, and that difference changes the entire dynamic of what is possible between them. The honest question every man needs to ask before moving forward is simple. Are we both genuinely different people now, or are we just two people who missed each other? Missing someone is real and valid, but it is not the same as being ready to build something better. Growth on both sides is the only foundation that gives a second attempt at a relationship a real and lasting chance of working out differently than the first. 5. How to rebuild without repeating the same mistakes. If after honest reflection a man decides that giving things another chance is the right move, the next critical step is making sure the rebuilding process is done correctly. Because going back without a clear framework for how things will be different is not rebuilding, it is just returning. And returning to the same relationship with the same dynamics will always produce the same result, no matter how much both people want it to be different this time. A man decides to give his relationship another chance after his ex returns genuinely remorseful and visibly changed. Instead of just sliding back into the old routine, he sits down with her and has a direct, honest conversation about what went wrong the first time, what both of them are committing to do differently, and what the new boundaries and expectations look like going forward. Rebuilding correctly means having the honest conversations that were avoided the first time around. It means establishing clear boundaries early, communicating needs directly, and addressing issues as they arise rather than letting them build silently. It means moving at a pace that allows trust to develop genuinely rather than rushing back to intimacy before the real work has been done. The most important thing to remember during this process is that hope alone is not a plan. Good intentions on both sides are necessary, but they are not sufficient. What turns good intentions into a genuinely different relationship is consistent action, honest communication, and the mutual willingness to do things differently, even when old habits make the familiar path feel easier. 6. When walking away again is the smartest move you can make. Here is the part of this conversation that most men do not want to hear, but genuinely need to. Sometimes the right answer when a woman comes back is to not take her back at all. Not out of bitterness, not out of pride, and not to make a point, but because after honest reflection, the evidence simply does not support giving the relationship another chance. And choosing yourself in that moment is not cold or heartless. It is one of the most self-aware and self-respecting decisions a man can make. The signs that walking away again is the right move are usually clear if a man is willing to look at them honestly. She has not taken real accountability for what happened. The reasons she left are still present and unaddressed. She is offering the same relationship with slightly different packaging, or simply, the man has grown during the time apart into someone who genuinely needs something different from what this relationship was ever able to provide. Any one of those realities is a valid and sufficient reason to choose not to go back. Walking away from someone who has returned takes a different kind of strength than walking away the first time. The first time, the relationship was already broken. This time, there is hope involved, and choosing to walk away despite that hope requires a man to trust his own clarity over his emotions. That is Stoicism in its most practical and most powerful form, choosing long-term peace and self-respect over short-term emotional comfort. The Stoic man understands that not every return deserves a second chapter. Some relationships end for reasons that do not change simply because time has passed and feelings have resurfaced. Knowing the difference between a genuine second chance and a repeated mistake is one of the most valuable things a man can develop. And having the courage to act on that knowledge, even when it is painful, is what separates men who keep growing from men who keep going in circles. 7. Use this moment to become the strongest version of yourself. Regardless of what a man decides, whether he gives things another chance or chooses to walk away, the most important thing that can come out of this entire experience is personal growth. And that is the Stoic perspective that ties everything in this video together. Every difficult moment, every painful experience, every situation that forces a man to make hard decisions about his own life is an opportunity to become stronger, clearer, and more grounded in who he is. Here is the constructive criticism that needs to be said directly. A lot of men use the return of a woman as an excuse to stop doing the work they started doing when she left. The gym routine, the personal goals, the self-development, the new sense of direction, all of it quietly gets deprioritized the moment she comes back into the picture. And that is a serious mistake, because the growth that happened during her absence is exactly what made the situation different this time. Abandoning that growth to accommodate her return is trading the best version of yourself for the comfort of familiarity. And that trade never ends well. The wake-up call here is simple. Do not let anyone's return, regardless of how much they mean to you, interrupt the journey of becoming the man you were building during their absence. The goals stay, the standards stay, the self-respect stays. A woman who genuinely wants to be part of a man's life will add to that journey, not pull him away from it. And if her return requires him to shrink back into a lesser version of himself, that is not a return worth accepting on any terms. Use this moment as a defining one. Let it be the moment that proves to yourself that your growth, your peace, and your sense of self-worth are not negotiable. Not for anyone, not under any circumstances, and not at any price. Here is the uncomfortable truth that this entire video has been building toward. A woman coming back does not mean she has changed. It does not mean the relationship will be different. And it does not mean a man is obligated to open a door that he worked hard to close. The fact that she returned is information. What a man does with that information defines everything. Everything covered today comes back to one central principle. Stoicism is not about being cold or emotionally shut down. It is about being so grounded in self-awareness and self-respect that no external situation, however emotionally charged, can pull a man away from his own clarity and his own standards. Whether the decision is to rebuild or to walk away, the Stoic man makes that decision from a place of genuine strength rather than emotional reaction. The most powerful thing any man can do in this moment is trust himself. Trust the growth, trust the clarity, and trust the standards that were built during her absence. Those things were earned. They deserve to be protected. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in this situation where a woman came back after leaving and you had to make that difficult decision? How did you handle it and what did you learn from it? Drop your experience in the comments below because I read every single one and I will be responding personally. Your story might be exactly what someone else watching this video needs to hear right now. Let us keep this conversation going together.